How's it going, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So I got this video sent to me from the comment section from Formula One something another. I can't remember the exact name off the top of my head, but shout out to you for this video. We have Why Does the Netherlands Have a Creepy Circular Island by the channel What on Earth Is This? So we're gonna find out what on earth this is. Links down below for this. And the description says, one day when I was scanning Google Maps, as you do, which I do that too sometimes randomly, right? How many people do that? Just get bored and just look through Google Maps, right? Comment down below. Says, I spotted a weird circle that looked like a robot eye, and I was so bequailed and perhaps spooked that I ended up flying to the Netherlands to see it in person. Bit of an overreaction, I know. It says, IJsseloog. No, that capitalized J is not a typo. Is a bizarre-looking man-made island in the Dutch province of Flevoland. And it serves a rather unique purpose that solves quite a common problem, waste disposal. Everyone's favorite subject. Okay, yeah, sure, yeah. I love talking about waste disposal, right? How exactly does this work? When was it built? Why is this so creepy looking? Come with me on an adventure to a nearby riverbank to find out. Where's this guy's channel from? I'm going to look real quick because he said he flew to the Netherlands. He flew to the Netherlands to have a look. And UK, okay, so he's not very far from the Netherlands. He went from the UK to the Dutch lands to check out a robot eye. So anyways, links down below. If I didn't already say that before, I probably did. I don't know. Just in case, though, I'll tell you again, right? Doesn't hurt. Thanks for watching with me, guys. We're going to check this out. Thanks for the suggestion, Formula One, Maxim, something another, whatever your name is. I've seen you around commenting for quite a few years now, actually. Probably at least 2 years, I feel like. So thanks for supporting me, actually. I do appreciate it. Anyways, enough rambling. We're going to push play. So he bought a drone and flew to the Netherlands just to use it to make a video for his channel. That's cool. Is that the IJsseloog?
What on earth is this?
Very cool. And I guess I could kind of see the circular shape. Okay, so his channel is just What on Earth. So he just goes to different places. I'm gonna subscribe because that sounds super cool, to be honest with you.
With the passing of time and the erosion that comes with it, islands can form some pretty interesting shapes. You've got a fish in Croatia. You've got a seahorse in Ecuador. You've got a heart in the Maldives. You've even got a smiley face in Malaysia. But have you ever seen an island in the shape of a creepy robot's eye? No.
But the thing is this one's man-made if it's in Flevoland. I'll tell you that right now for a fact. That wasn't no natural structure, right? 'Cause Flevoland is a province that was made from, it used to be like, you know, the ocean and or the sea. It used to be water, right? They turned it into a polder, called it Flevoland.
No? Well, now you have, and there's no way of unseeing it. Though it sees you. It always sees you. But rest assured, this bizarre island in the Netherlands is not the creation of erosion or natural processes, or aliens, as you might have guessed if you have a brain. This is Ketelmeer, a boundary lake which skirts around the edge of Flevopolder, a monumental man-made island in the middle of the Netherlands. Now,
it's called Flevopolder? Okay, so I knew it was called Flevoland. The province is called Flevoland. The polder itself is Flevopolder. Now, I have a question, because
which skirts around the edge of...
This was done in 2 parts. Flevoland, right? Like they did it like it was like half a polder, half of this first. Then they extended it more. Does that have 2 different names for that, or is it just Flevopolder? Like when they first did it, was this part had a name? Then when they extended it, there was a separate name, or I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking it.
Flevoland, a monumental man-made island in the middle of the Netherlands. Now, I'm not going to go into too much detail about the creation of Flevoland, as I talked about the region in my previous video. Shameless plug here if you want to learn a bit more how the Dutch did this. But basically, this whole area used to be a...
Hold on, what video? I might have to check that out. Sorry, guys.
Previous video. Shameless.
I visited the Netherlands' coolest bridge. Okay, I've seen this bridge. I've done a reaction to it, and it is super, super cool. It's a water bridge. Like, the boat goes above the cars. That is super cool. I may check out his video on it also. If you want to see me do that, let me know.
Let's plug here if you want to learn a bit more how the Dutch did this. But basically, this whole area used to be a big salty bay called Zuiderzee until they dammed off the top of it in the 1920s and turned it into a gigantic freshwater lake called IJsseloog. They then built a massive island in IJsselmeer called Flevoland with a little ring of water retained around the outside before damming off parts of that too, creating a series of so-called border lakes, one of which...
This one's a polder too. You can't see it, but the one up here, if you can see where my mouse cursor is there, that was a polder as well. And this one, they basically branched it off directly from the main land. So the original coast that was there isn't there no more. It caused a lot of issues with the environment and marine ecology, whatever, right? So then when they did this, when they learned from the mistakes and they kept the original coast and they built it just off of that. So then you just have the little waterway that goes through there now. So you still have that original coast. I don't know exactly what the reasoning was necessarily, but just an interesting little tidbit.
Which is Ketelmeer. And this is just a fragment of the larger Zuiderzee works, a wonderland of artificial islands, lakes and rivers, and one of the 7 wonders of the modern world, along with the CN Tower, which shouldn't be in there because it's just a tall building. Fight me in the comments. But
the CN Tower? Yeah, no, I agree. That shouldn't be. That's crazy.
one big problem with the creation of the Zuiderzee is that there was now no longer a steady flow of water from the Netherlands' billion trillion rivers into the North Sea, and thus all the fresh water that came through these rivers was just emptied into Ketelmeer and IJsselmeer, along with whatever toxic sludge might have been in that water. By far the largest river feeding the lake is the IJssel, and yes, before you point it out, I know it's weird as hell that the IJssel and IJsselmeer have 2 capital letters at the start of their names. It's because the I sound, formed by I and J in this context in the Dutch language, are considered a single phoneme or sound when placed together, and when written down they are often smushed into one character called a digraph, and either capitalized or uncapitalized together. If you're a linguistics nerd, you might be screaming at your computer, but Gabe, other digraphs aren't capitalized in that fashion. To which I say, you do realize you're talking about the Netherlands, right? The country that has a city whose name begins with an apostrophe, and who has a town called Hungry Wolf. That Netherlands, right?
Hungry
Yeah,
Wolf.
Okay, I was just checking. But yeah, the IJssel is the largest river feed.
I gotta check out Hungry Wolf, right? That'd be cool. I need to do a video about Hungry Wolf. I need to open that up in a new tab real quick just so I can remind myself. And I know this isn't the right spelling, but, well, you can't even see that part anyways because only a portion of my screen shows up. Hungry Wolf, Netherlands. That'll remind me. Okay.
Feeding IJsselmeer, but before that it has to go through Ketelmeer, which is here. And with that, we're back to where we were a few minutes ago. The IJssel snakes its way through central Netherlands, starting at the major city Arnhem before passing through the towns of Zutphen, Deventer and Zwolle before emptying into IJsselmeer. And for more than a century, the IJssel was thus the proud recipient of all the toxic sludge containing mercury, cadmium and zinc from factories and smelters in these towns, particularly in the decades following the Second World War. This initially all floated downstream and ended up in IJsselmeer, until the Flevoland and all its little border lakes were created in the 1950s and 60s, bottlenecking the flow of all of this toxic sludge into the tiny Ketelmeer border lake, creating a layer of sludge about 50 centimeters or 1.5 foot deep across the entire lake bed.
Ew.
Whoops. But with the Netherlands being a key member of the European Union, in the 90s, the long arm of Brussels reached over into the Netherlands to wag a finger in the face of the Dutch, telling them to clean up the water in Ketelmeer and the IJssel in order to fall in line with EU environmental regulations and to stop the groundwater from becoming contaminated with toxic sludge.
I mean, fair enough. Fair enough. Nobody wants that. Toxic sludge, right?
And in typical Dutch fashion, the Rijkswaterstaat, the government body that deals with water management, rolled up its sleeves and went, "Yes, another chance to massively over-engineer a solution," and got to work. The plan was always to dredge up the toxic silt from the bottom of the lake. But then what? Well, placing it on land was ruled out almost immediately. Not only would that almost certainly be met with massive pushback from the residents of wherever it ended up, but would also present a larger risk of leakage, which could contaminate the ground and cause a major headache further down the line. And as much as they would have loved to fire this waste into the sun, the laws of physics dictated that they had to choose a third option.
In the early
Firing it into the sun. I like that. Can we do that? That sounds fun. Why is that not an option? Right? I mean, maybe it'll be expensive. Maybe not, though. If you just shoot like a small little rocket full of sludge, just really fast, just aim it at the sun, it's going to keep going. You don't have to have rocket fuel to keep going, because once you get into space, it'll just keep that momentum forever until it stops, right? Why is that not an option? Why can't we just fling our garbage at the sun? I don't know. Maybe the sun would explode. Maybe that's not a good thing. Maybe that's why. Maybe science is the reason. I don't know.
early 90s, it was decided that all of the toxic sludge would effectively just be funneled into a big artificial island that would work as a sort of storage container, separating it from the rest of the lake by a series of 10-meter high dikes.
By 1996, construction was underway, and by 1999, the project was complete. This is IJsseloog, said artificial island in the middle of Ketelmeer, which contains its own extremely aesthetically pleasing circular lake in the middle. IJsseloog technically translates to the Eye of the IJssel, which is a cool name already, but it's quite clever because oog is also the old Dutch word for island, so it's also the island of the IJssel. Meanwhile, Google completely misses the mark and incorrectly translates it to ice cream eye. So if any Dutch viewers are watching, can you tell me how they've come to that conclusion? Because I couldn't figure.
Can you explain Dutch people, like the ones out there that actually know Dutch language very fluently, because I do not? How did this happen? How is that ice cream eye? Can you explain this to us?
Eye. So if any Dutch viewers are watching, can you tell me how they've come to that conclusion? Because I couldn't figure it out. The lake in the middle is not connected to the rest of Ketelmeer. Instead, it's basically a well where all the sludge from Ketelmeer and elsewhere in the Netherlands can be stored, and it's absolutely gigantic. It has a capacity of 23 million cubic meters of waste, has a diameter of 1 kilometer, and boasts a depth of 50 meters or 165 feet.
What happens when it gets full, though? Does it just pool into that and just stay there and collect and just sit there forever in its own little isolated spot? Or, I mean, I guess they're gonna get to that, but
to give you a sense of the scale of this project, the surrounding lake has an average depth of just 3 meters or 10 feet. Along with Dutch dredging firm Boskalis Westminster, the Rijkswaterstaat started dredging up the toxic silt from the lake bed and into the tank at IJsseloog in the year 2000. 2/3 of the space is intended for Ketelmeer sludge, with the final third being for sludge elsewhere in the Netherlands. And in 2016, private companies were given permission to apply to deposit their own toxic sludge on the island. Articles from the year 2000 suggest that the process would be completed within about 20 years, but it hasn't quite worked like that.
Ketelmeer is now clean, which is amazing in its own right.
Right,
and
that's
sludge is
good.
still being brought in from other parts of the country. But IJsseloog is nowhere near full.
A few years back, there were briefly concerns that the island may never be full, as most toxic areas had already been cleared up, and the rate of pollution from Dutch and German factories is so much lower than it used to be. So
well, that's good. If it'll never fill up, then you just have it forever. But what happens if it does? Where do you put it? Do you just build another one? Does it just sit there forever and hope the dike doesn't leak? Because then the toxic sludge just goes out full force into the water, and then it's a hell of a lot worse than it ever was to begin with. Because then instead of a little at a time, you got all of it at once. What happens then?
that's a nice outcome, though it probably annoyed the aqueduct at the Rijkswaterstaat, whose calculations had been thwarted. And never underestimate the wrath of a water nerd scorned, because instead of just leaving it as is, they shrank the size of the container so that it would fill up more quickly.
For the sake of this video, I actually contacted the Rijkswaterstaat directly, and they told me that they expect IJsseloog to be filled in about 7 to 8 years.
Why do they want it filled faster? Why do they want it full? If it was gonna like never get full, I don't understand why that's a problem. We got an infinite trash can to toss our sludge in that we'll never have to dump because it'll never be full. That's not good enough. They're like, no, we need to make that thing smaller because we want to have to deal with doing something with it when it fills up. That makes no sense to me. That's like one of the only things about the Netherlands, Dutch people, that makes no sense. Most of it always makes sense. That does not make sense to me. Can somebody please clarify this? I'm thoroughly confused here.
And that following the shrinking of the container, there's still about 6 million cubic meters of space left in there. So it's going to be a while.
Once IJsseloog fills up, then the real fun begins.
Okay, yeah.
Decantation. The water will be left for a time to let all the gross sediment sink to the bottom, like pulp in an unshaken glass of orange juice. This is helped by the structure's contained, sunken nature, protecting it from tides, currents, and inclement weather. Once that's done, the quote-unquote clean water at the top will be siphoned off and sanitized using a filtration process before being sent back into Ketelmeer. The contaminated sludge will then be treated by facilities on the island, which will separate the pollutants from the silt. The contaminants will be shoved back in the well and permanently sealed with layers of clay and sand, forever consigning them to the IJsseloog. But get this, the separated and now clean silt will be used to create more artificial marshland covered islands nearby as a bird habitat. To see a snapshot of what this might look like, just take a closer look at IJsseloog. This little island off its southeastern coast is called Hansaplaat and was created from the silt that was excavated from the initial creation of IJsseloog, and is currently a thriving bird sanctuary. Furthermore, the middle of the eye will then be covered over in silt, and IJsseloog will be turned into a little island that might be used for recreation or power generation or other fun stuff the government hasn't said yet. It's all very cool and very Dutch, and we're all very jealous of their big brains. The design of this thing means that leaks and flooding are not a concern. The bottom of the tank is lined with...
Hopefully, I mean, every time anything's designed, they always rule out the possibility that bad things are going to happen, because they always say that our design is superior. Our design will not suffer those catastrophic failures. But things happen. Things do happen. Things do break. I mean, look at the Titanic. It was the unsinkable ship. This thing was designed to be unsinkable. It could just travel around the world. Well, we see how far that lasted. How unsinkable was it? I mean, you know, it was pretty sinkable.
With piles of extremely thick, impenetrable clay, while the walls are lined with foil, I assume not kitchen foil, but something a bit more industrial grade. Furthermore, to avoid flooding, the water is kept 4 meters below the level of the surrounding lake, which is lower than the actual lake bed, and the circular dike that forms the perimeter of the eye is 10 meters tall, despite not looking like that at all. So whatever goes into the IJsseloog doesn't come out unless we want it to. IJsseloog is an example of a municipal cleanup project done right. Polluted silt is a widespread issue across the globe, but the Dutch being the Dutch, they did the prerequisite maths and took a punt on what seemed a pretty weird idea, and then the world watched as they once again conquered a common problem with a highly uncommon solution. The IJsseloog is a genuinely masterful piece of engineering, and is a perfect demonstration of the Dutch modus operandi of engineering their way out of a corner.
From the beachgoers in Ketelmeer who are looking to avoid wading through toxic sludge on their day out, to birds looking for a nice habitat, to the government who might have ended up with a pretty hefty engineering bill had they tackled this problem incorrectly, IJsseloog is just a win-win for everyone. Except for me, because I'm so cold! Oh my god! My hands are going to fall off.
Oh, there's that one. I visited the Netherlands' coolest bridge. I'm going to go ahead and put this in my watch later list, and that way we can check it out soon. So thanks for watching with me, guys. Let me know what you think about that. Wouldn't it make more sense if they just didn't have to worry about it filling up, like, right? Seems like a lot of work but then again, I guess they want to clean it up because they don't want it sitting there forever, because then, like I said, if something does happen and they do just rely on it to sit there forever and something does happen, that's not good. So I guess if you do force it to fill up in 7-8 years, you force yourself to figure out, deal with the problem before it becomes a bigger problem, right? So I guess that makes sense. Thanks for watching with me, guys. You guys have a super fun, awesome day, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care. Bye.